Ma'am, my trunk was open when you pulled in. I'm just loading my groceries.
First, you're lying!
Whoa, she's up in his face.
Police coming now. Keep recording.
You think you can just stand there like you're innocent? Move your car!
Bailey noticed the cameras and her performance shifted. She took a step back from Leonard and raised her voice even higher. "Everyone needs to see this," she announced. "This man has been harassing me, following me around the parking lot, making me uncomfortable." A younger guy in a baseball cap shook his head. "That's not what happened. We saw the whole thing. You came up to him." Bailey whipped around. "Are you calling me a liar?" "I'm saying what I saw." "Well, you didn't see everything." She turned back to Leonard. Tell them what you said to me before everyone got here." Leonard said nothing. "See?" Bailey pointed at him. "He won't even deny it. He knows what he did." An older man in the crowd spoke up. His voice was calm but firm. "Young lady, I've been standing here for 5 minutes. That man hasn't said a word to you except to apologize and try to leave. You don't know what happened before you got here. I know what I'm seeing now, and what I'm seeing is you blocking someone from leaving." Bailey's face flushed red. She wasn't used to being challenged. "He stole my parking spot. That's theft. That's a crime." The woman who'd been recording lowered her phone slightly. "It's a parking spot at a grocery store. Just let it go." "No!" Bailey's voice cracked with frustration. "I'm tired of people like him thinking they own everything, walking around like they have more rights than everyone else." The crowd went silent. Leonard finally spoke. His voice was steady, tired. "I think we all know what this is really about." "Oh, here we go." Bailey laughed bitterly. "Let me guess, you're going to make this about race. You're going to play the victim." "I'm not playing anything. I'm just trying to leave." "Then why won't you apologize?" "For what?" "For taking my spot, for being rude, for making me feel unsafe." Leonard looked at her for a long moment. "I'm sorry you feel that way. I truly am. But I didn't do anything wrong." Bailey's eyes narrowed. "That's not an apology." In the distance, sirens started to wail. 2 police cars were making their way through the parking lot. The guy in the baseball cap muttered, "This is ridiculous." Bailey heard him. "What's ridiculous is that people like you always defend people like him. It's disgusting." The police cars pulled up. 2 officers stepped out. One was white, probably in his 40s. The other was Hispanic, younger, maybe late 20s. The older officer approached. "Who called?" Bailey rushed forward. "I did. This man has been threatening me. He took my parking spot, and when I confronted him, he became aggressive and hostile." The officer looked at Leonard. "Sir, is that true?" "No, sir," Leonard said quietly. "I parked here 20 minutes ago, did my shopping, came back to my car. She honked at me and said I took her spot. I told her I was leaving. She blocked my door and called you." The officer looked around at the crowd. "Anyone else see what happened?" 5 people spoke at once. The stories all matched Leonard's version. Bailey's face went pale, then red, then pale again. The younger officer checked Leonard's shopping receipt. "This shows you entered the store at 2:47 p.m. It's 3:22 now. Your story checks out." Bailey stammered. But he was still rude. He still made me feel threatened." The older officer sighed. "Ma'am, from what everyone here is saying, you were the one who initiated this confrontation. You blocked his vehicle, and you made a false report about being threatened." "I wasn't false. I felt threatened." This woman made the worst mistake of her life when she tried to humiliate the wrong man in a parking lot. It started over something as simple as a parking space, but what she said next would change everything. Before we continue, let me take this opportunity to thank you so much for supporting our channel. Just choosing to watch our video means a lot to us. Before we go any further, tell us, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this is your first time here. His name was Leonard Hayes, 63 years old, retired firefighter. He just finished his grocery shopping at the Riverside Shopping Center on a Thursday afternoon. He was loading bags into his trunk when he heard the horn. One blast, then another, then a third that lasted 5 full seconds. Leonard looked up. A white BMW sat 3 cars back, engine running.
The driver was a young woman in her 20s with blonde hair pulled into a ponytail. She was leaning on her horn and pointing at him. He glanced around. There were empty spots 2 rows over. He went back to loading his groceries. The BMW lurched forward and stopped right behind his car. The door flew open. "Excuse me," the woman shouted as she stepped out. Her name was Bailey Morrison. "That's my spot." Leonard closed his trunk slowly. "I'm sorry?" "That spot. You took my spot. I was waiting for it." He looked at the ground, then back at her. "Ma'am, I've been parked here for 20 minutes. I'm leaving now anyway." "That's not the point." Bailey crossed her arms. "You saw me waiting and you took it. That's rude." Leonard took a breath. He'd been through this before. Different faces, same script. "I didn't see anyone waiting, but like I said, I'm leaving. You can have it in 30 seconds. "I don't want it in 30 seconds. I wanted it 20 minutes ago." Other shoppers were starting to notice. A man with a cart slowed down nearby. A woman standing by her minivan pulled out her phone. Bailey stepped closer. "You people always think you can do whatever you want." The air shifted. Leonard felt it before she even finished the sentence. "You people?" he repeated quietly. "Yeah, you heard me." Bailey's voice got louder. "You think just because you got here first, you can take whatever you want. Well, guess what? I'm calling the cops." She pulled out her phone. Leonard didn't move. He just stood there with his keys in his hand, watching her dial. "Yeah, hi," Bailey said into the phone. "I'm at Riverside Shopping Center, and there's a man here threatening me. He took my parking spot, and now he won't leave. He's being really aggressive." Leonard's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. He knew better. "Yes, he's a black male, probably in his 60s. Yes, I feel unsafe. Please send someone." She hung up and smiled. "They're on their way. Hope you've got nothing to hide." The woman with the phone was still recording. The man with the cart had stopped completely. Another couple walked over to see what was happening. Leonard looked at Bailey, really looked at her. She couldn't have been more than 25. Designer purse, expensive sunglasses pushed up on her head, the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "I don't want any trouble. I'm going to get in my car and leave." "No, you're not." Bailey moved to block his driver's side door. "You're staying right here until the police arrive. You need to learn a lesson." Someone in the small crowd that had gathered spoke up. "Lady, just let him leave." Bailey spun around. "Mind your own business. He's the one causing problems." Leonard stood perfectly still, his hands at his sides, his face neutral. He'd learned a long time ago that in moments like this, any movement could be used against you. Would you stay calm in a situation like this, or would you defend yourself? The answer mattered more than anyone watching could possibly understand. The crowd grew larger, 7 people now, then 10, all with their phones out.
Feeling threatened and being threatened are 2 different things. Bailey's hands started shaking. She looked around at the crowd, at the cameras, at Leonard standing there with his keys still in his hand. "This is unbelievable," she whispered. "You're all against me." The officer turned to Leonard. "Sir, do you want to press charges for false reporting?" Leonard shook his head. "I just want to go home." "That's it?" Bailey's voice rose again. "He just gets to leave after everything?" What would you do if you were Leonard? Would you press charges, or would you just walk away? The answer was about to get more complicated than anyone expected. Before the officer could respond, a voice cut through the tension. "Bailey Morrison, what on earth are you doing?" Everyone turned. An older woman was walking quickly across the parking lot. She was in her mid-50s with short gray hair and a canvas shopping bag over her shoulder. Her face was a mixture of shock and anger. Bailey froze. "Mom?" The woman reached the crowd and looked around at the phones, the police, the gathering of people. Then her eyes landed on Leonard. Her expression changed immediately. The anger melted into something else. Recognition. Disbelief. "Leonard?" she said softly. Leonard's eyes widened. "Margaret?" Bailey looked between them. "You 2 know each other?" Margaret ignored her daughter and walked straight to Leonard. "Leonard Hayes, I can't believe it. How long has it been?"
8 years, Leonard said. Maybe 9. The officers exchanged glances. The crowd leaned in closer. Bailey's voice rose. Mom, what are you doing? This man what? Margaret turned to face her daughter. Her voice was sharp. This man what, Bailey? He stole my parking spot. He was rude to me. Stop talking. Margaret's words were quiet, but they cut like glass. Just stop. Bailey's mouth closed. Margaret looked at the officers. I'm so sorry you were called out here for this. My daughter clearly doesn't know who she's dealing with. The older officer raised an eyebrow. Ma'am, do you know this gentleman? I do. Margaret took a breath. Leonard Hayes saved my life 9 years ago. The parking lot went completely silent. Bailey shook her head. What? No, that's not... Mom, what are you talking about? Margaret kept her eyes on Leonard. You probably don't remember. It was at the grocery store on 5th Street, different one from this. I had a heart attack right there in the produce section. Leonard nodded slowly. I remember. I was alone, collapsed right next to the apples. You were shopping with your wife. Margaret's voice cracked slightly. You performed CPR for 7 minutes until the ambulance arrived. The paramedics said you'd been even a minute later, I wouldn't have made it. She turned to face Bailey. This man kept me alive long enough for help to arrive. This man is the reason you still have a mother. Bailey's face drained of color. I didn't... You didn't what? You didn't bother to ask his name before you harassed him, before you called the police, before you accused him of threatening you? The woman who'd been recording the whole thing lowered her phone. Even she looked uncomfortable now. Margaret looked back at Leonard. I tried to find you afterward. The hospital had your name, but no contact information. I wrote letters to the fire department after someone told me you might work there. Did you ever get them? I did. All 3 of them. I'm sorry I never responded. I'm not good with things like that. I was just glad you were okay.
You saved my life and you couldn't even accept a thank you? Leonard smiled slightly. It was the first time his face had softened since the confrontation began. I was just doing what anyone would do. No, Margaret's voice was firm. Not anyone. You. Bailey stood there, frozen. Her expensive purse suddenly felt heavy on her shoulder. Her designer sunglasses felt ridiculous on her head. She looked at Leonard differently now, not as the man who took her parking spot, but as the man who gave her mother back to her. The younger officer cleared his throat. So, I'm guessing we don't need to file a report here? Margaret looked at her daughter. That depends. Bailey, do you have something you'd like to say? Bailey opened her mouth. Nothing came out. The crowd waited. The cameras were still rolling. Leonard stood with his hands at his sides, watching her struggle. Bailey's voice was barely a whisper. I didn't know. That's not an apology, Margaret said coldly. Think about this for a moment. If you were Bailey, how would you face this? How do you apologize for something like this? The next chapter would reveal whether she could. Bailey's hands were shaking. She looked down at them like they belonged to someone else. I'm sorry, she finally said. Her voice cracked. I'm so sorry. Leonard didn't respond right away. He just looked at her, really looked at her. Not with anger, not with judgment, just observation. The older police officer stepped closer to her daughter. Do you understand what you did here today? I made a mistake. I thought... No, Margaret cut her off. You didn't make a mistake. A mistake is grabbing the wrong carton of milk. What you did was deliberate. You saw this man and you made assumptions. You decided who he was before he ever opened his mouth. Bailey's eyes filled with tears. I was just upset about the parking spot. This was never about a parking spot. Margaret's voice was steady but sad. I heard what you said. I heard you say, you people. I heard you tell him he needed to learn a lesson. That's not about parking, Bailey. That's about something much deeper. The crowd was still watching. Some had lowered their phones. Others kept recording. This wasn't entertainment anymore. It was education. Bailey wiped her eyes.
I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to be honest with him, with me, with yourself. Bailey looked at Leonard. He was still standing there patiently, waiting. I was wrong, Bailey said. I was completely wrong. I saw you and I assumed things I had no right to assume. And then when people started defending you, I got defensive. I doubled down because I couldn't admit I was wrong in front of everyone. She took a shaky breath. I'm not a bad person. I swear I'm not. But today, I acted like one. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Leonard nodded slowly. I appreciate that. That's it? Bailey looked confused. You're not going to yell at me? Tell me how terrible I am? Would that help? I don't know. Leonard shifted his weight. I've been where you are right now. Not exactly the same, but similar. Years ago, I made assumptions about someone based on how they looked. I was wrong. It taught me something important. Bailey waited. Everyone's carrying something you can't see. Everyone's fighting a battle you don't know about. When you judge someone without knowing them, you're not seeing a person. You're seeing a character you created in your head. Margaret put her hand on her daughter's shoulder. Do you understand what he's saying? I created a villain where there wasn't one. You did, Leonard said gently, but the fact that you can see that now means something. The older police officer stepped forward. Mr. Hayes, I need to ask one more time. Do you want to press charges? She did file a false police report.
Leonard looked at Bailey. She looked terrified, young, lost. He thought about his own daughter. She was Bailey's age. He'd raised her to be better than this, but he also knew that people could learn, people could change, if given the chance. No, Leonard said, no charges. Bailey's knees nearly buckled. Thank you so much. Don't thank me, Leonard said. Just do better, that's all I ask. Margaret squeezed her daughter's shoulder. Then she turned to Leonard. I never got to properly thank you for what you did. Can I at least buy you coffee? Lunch? Something? Leonard smiled. You don't owe me anything, Margaret. I'm just glad you're healthy. At least let me give you my number, in case you ever need anything at all. They exchanged information. The crowd began to disperse. The police officers returned to their cars. The man in the baseball cap gave Leonard a nod of respect as he walked away. Bailey stood there watching Leonard, watching her mother smile at him, watching him treat them both with a kindness she didn't deserve. Mr. Hayes? Bailey's voice was small. Leonard turned. How do I become more like you? He thought about it for a moment. Start by seeing people, really seeing them. Not what you think they are, not what you're afraid they might be, just who they actually are. That sounds hard. It is, Leonard admitted, but it's worth it. Could you show that kind of grace to someone who hurt you? Could you forgive when you had every right to press charges? Leonard got into his car. The groceries in his trunk had been sitting there for over 30 minutes now. The ice cream was probably melted. He didn't care. Margaret and Bailey stood together in the parking lot, watching him prepare to leave. Mother and daughter, 2 generations, 1 lesson. Before Leonard could start the engine, Margaret tapped on his window. He rolled it down. I need to tell you something, Margaret said. After you saved my life, I spent months thinking about that day, about how you didn't hesitate, about how you knew exactly what to do. I asked myself what kind of person runs toward an emergency when everyone else runs away. Leonard shook his head. I was a firefighter for 30 years. It's what we do. No, Margaret said firmly, it's what you do. And today, you did it again. You could have pressed charges. You could have made Bailey's life very difficult, but you chose grace instead. Bailey stepped forward. Her eyes were still red. I'm going to remember this day for the rest of my life, not because I want to, but because I need to. Good, Leonard said simply. Can I ask you something? Bailey's voice wavered. Why were you so calm? Even when I said those things, even when I called the police, you never raised your voice, never got angry? How? Leonard leaned back in his seat. Because I knew something you didn't. What? That this moment wasn't about me, it was about you. Bailey looked confused. You were having a bad day, maybe a bad week, maybe a bad year, I don't know. But you took it out on a stranger in a parking lot because that was easier than dealing with whatever's actually bothering you. Bailey's lip trembled. He'd hit something true. I could have matched your energy, could have yelled back, could have made the situation worse, but that wouldn't have fixed anything. It would have just given you an excuse to keep believing the story you told yourself about me. What story? That I was the bad guy, that you were justified, that you were the victim. Leonard's voice was gentle but direct. If I'd acted the way you expected, you would have learned nothing. But because I stayed calm, you had to face the truth that you were wrong, and that's a harder lesson than any punishment I could have given you. Margaret put her arm around her daughter. He's right.
Bailey nodded. She couldn't speak. Leonard started his car. One more thing, Bailey. She looked up. This doesn't define you. What happened today doesn't make you a bad person. But what you do next will show who you really are. You can forget this and go back to making assumptions, or you can remember this feeling and let it change you. I'll remember, Bailey whispered. I promise. Leonard believed her. Maybe he was naive, maybe she'd forget in a week, but he had to believe that people could be better, that moments like this mattered. He pulled out of the parking spot. Bailey and Margaret watched him go. As he drove away, Leonard thought about his wife. She'd passed away 2 years ago, cancer. He'd been lost without her. Some days he still was. She used to tell him that his superpower wasn't his strength or his training. It was his ability to see the good in people even when they couldn't see it themselves. You make people want to be better, she'd said once, just by being you. He'd never understood what she meant, but maybe today he did. Leonard turned onto the main road. His phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. Thank you for being who you are. I'm taking Bailey home and we're going to have a long conversation. She wants to volunteer at the community center where you used to work. I told her I'd ask if they need help. Is that okay? Leonard smiled. He texted back. More than okay. Tell her to ask for Joyce. She runs the youth programs. They can always use good people. He set his phone down and kept driving. Behind him, in that parking lot, a young woman was learning that her actions had consequences, that her words carried weight, that the world didn't revolve around her comfort. And somewhere, maybe, she was beginning to understand that the man she'd tried to humiliate had given her something far more valuable than a parking spot. He'd given her a chance to become someone better. Do you think Bailey will actually change? Do you think one moment like this can transform someone? Or does real change take more than that? Think about it, and think about the Leonard Hayes in your own life, the person who showed you grace when you didn't deserve it, the person who stayed calm when you were chaos, the person who saw something good in you that you couldn't see yourself. Maybe today you can be that person for someone else. If this story moved you, drop a comment below. Tell us where you're watching from. Tell us about a time someone showed you unexpected kindness. And don't forget to like and subscribe. We share real stories about real people every single week. Stories that remind us what it means to be human. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.